Bam! Welcome to the Real Talk Sports Show. I'm your host, the Minister Jonathan Simmons. We thank God for all those of you who decide to tune in here and watch us on various platforms, whether it be on Facebook, YouTube, or on Twitch. We appreciate you, make you very, very much. We also want to give a big shout out to those of you who are listening. That's right, listening only on the legendary WIGO Pacesetter 1570 where the lovely Miss Lady E is holding it down back in the studios, located right in the heart of Clayton County. So appreciate all those of you. And last but not least, we want to give a big shout out to those of you who have tuned in to us via the on-demand or archive portal. So many of you listen to us after the show is on live, so we appreciate you very, very, very much. Well, lots of going on in the world of sports. And we had a big weekend of high school football, which we do every weekend. Of course, this is now prime time for high school football. And we, of course, are supported very, very vigorously and broadly by my employer, Allen Visual Sport and Lincoln. You can see right there for those of you watching on the screen. That is an overlay there that lets you know about it. We did the high school football game of the week from Tower Stadium. Now, occasionally we do go to other stadiums, but our primary place is Tara Stadium, and we get you all the games there. That is the home stadium from Jonesboro High School and for Mount Zion High School. And from time to time, you will have a home game there by Forest Park and also by Morrow. So those four teams are the originators of the home teams. Now, of course, Morrow and Forest Park has that beautiful new field. They call it, I think it's called Steel Park, which out there, technically in Ellenwood. Now, to me, it's always kind of strange that you would have a team that is based in Morrow, but their new school is in Ellenwood. But at the end of the day, I get it. You have a situation where, the schools, and we're going to have the superintendent on one of our broadcasts in the not too distant future. The Clayton County has decided to invest a lot of money into the facilities around the county, and we're very appreciative of that, and especially on the athletic departments. The superintendent, I listened to his remarks at an event I went to for the Chamber of Commerce, and he said he is committed to making sure that the uh, the high schools really get the type of athletic facilities that are competitive with many high schools around Metro Atlanta. Those of you who are listening from out of state, you may not know that Atlanta is a hotbed for high school football recruiting. They are one of the top locales in the nation for high school recruits, and they're right in the top four with California, Southern California, Southern Florida and Miami area, and of course, deep in the heart of Texas. Texas is obviously very, very big with high school football as well. But Atlanta is right up there in the top four for that because you have so many athletes here who are related to current and former athletes. I like to say all the time, the DNA is strong because very, very strong. Like again, you have some of the top players in the nation that have moved here. As a matter of fact, just as a sidebar, Atlanta, their chapter of the retired NFL players is the largest in the country. That's to give you an idea just how many, players have, moved here to Atlanta because it's a great spot. I mean, first of all, you got to look at the fact that it is, I don't want to say centrally located, but certainly when you look at different airports and different areas, it is strategically located. You're kind of not too far from New York. I think it's about an hour and 15 hour, 20 minutes flight, and you're only about 3 hours from LA. Not excuse me, Lord have mercy. You're only about 5 hours from LA. So at the end of the day, it's a great spot. And of course, everybody likes the ATL. Something's always popping in Atlanta. Something's always going on here. There's always some kind of big type of events. So I'm just saying that's why you have this situation where so many people want to be here in the A. But at the end of the day, we here, and we're going to bring you as much sports coverage as we can from around Metro Atlanta. Well, we're getting set here to transition, and I'm gonna let you guys take a look at this here. Let's see if hopefully I have some highlights up for you in just a moment. But last night we had a big game in Clayton County. It was Jonesboro against Forest Park, and Jonesboro rolled to a 53 to nothing victory over Forest Park. And I got to tell you, Jonesboro is really they're rolling boys. I mean, they have an outstanding offense. They have a good defense. This is their, I believe, second shutout of the season. So they are rolling right along. They beat Mount Zion. I think it was 46 to nothing or 44 to nothing. So this Jonesboro team knows what you have to do. What they do is they make sure that if they're playing an opponent that doesn't stack up to the firepower they have, they beat the brakes off them. And they don't have to kind of do as they can do when they're facing other top quality opponents. But at the end of the day, when they get in there and the opponent is not up to their caliber, they just run them out. And the way they do it is they have one of the most potent and explosive offenses right now in high school football, especially here on the South Side. I mean, they got some playmakers. And you guys, if you want to see some brief interviews that we've had with these guys, also if you want to look at some of the highlights, you can certainly do that by going to our Instagram page. Remember, Real Talk Sports and number 7. Or you also can find us on our YouTube page, Real Talk Sports, as well. So please, if you haven't done so already, please follow us on social media at Real Talk Sports 7. More importantly, please subscribe to us on YouTube where we're at Real Talk Sports. Like I said last night, high school football, it was again, Jonesboro was our featured game, 53 to nothing. The big guns in that game were, it's funny, it's like odd numbers, 3, 5, and 7. 3, 5, and 7 were the guys that took care of business. Excuse me, not 3, 5, and 7. Lord have mercy. 2, 3, and 5. I'm sorry, my bad. 2, 3, and 5 were the guys that did it. But number 7, the quarterback who I interviewed as well, he was the key because he's the trigger man. He's the guy that calls the plays and gets them out there and gets everybody set up on the line. So kudos to him for just saying, hey, let me just get the ball to the playmakers and let them do what they do. And the playmakers last night were number 2, number 3, and number 5. Number 2, I call him the Mighty Mite. He's only about 5'7" or 5'8", but he packs a lot of muscle, a lot of speed, and a lot of power in that little body. And I'm talking about Donovan McCoy. Number 3, that young man, I think, guys, we're going to see him in a D1 college in the next year or two, and possibly down the road might see him in the pros. He now is tagged with that label that they've come up with for high school players. It's called ATH. That means athlete. That means the guy can play anywhere on the field at any time. And certainly, number 3, John Tavius um, Wyman is just that guy. He's that dude for Jonesboro. He plays defensive back and he also plays wide receiver, very much like we see going on up in Colorado with the Buffaloes, as Dion has a similar player doing that same thing in Travis Hunter. So it looks like Wyman is following that same footsteps. Dynamic player both offensively and defensively. He had an electrifying punt return for a touchdown. And then number 5, a guy that sometimes doesn't get as much pub as his running mates, Lucius Murray. He put up he had 3 TDs yesterday in the big win over Forest Park. Like I said, the final was 53 to nothing. So, again, these guys are balling out, and we got some great teams in Morrow. Look out for them. They're playing well. Lovejoy always seems to put a good team on the field each and every year. So, like I said, guys, a lot of good stuff going on here in Clayton County and the South Side. And again, I would say all around high school football. So, again, if you get a chance, please, man, please. So I think the tickets are only now about I think they're $8 or something like that. So come on out and support these kids. We did have a little situation a few weeks ago where we had, unfortunately, shots were fired, and someone was shot outside the parking lot of the game. I know a lot of people say, well, "Bro, once you told me that, I'm not coming." But here's the reality. The realities are, and this is what I thought about when people talk to me about, what happened at the game and what goes on at at these high school stadiums. Man, these things go on everywhere. This is the time of day and season we're in right now, unfortunately. People are violent. They all kind of demonic things going on with them, and you never know what you're going to get when you go to a game. And we certainly had a couple of years ago, I think we had someone stabbed and killed I think it was an Oakland 49ers game. I saw on YouTube not too long ago, there was a preseason game where a 49er fan, I mean, beat the tar out of some guy. I mean, beat him into almost unconsciousness. And so am I saying I'm condoning in this activity? Obviously not. But what I'm saying is we can't be scared. the Bible says that the sluggard says to the lion in the street and won't go out to go to work. What do I mean by that? Again, I'm just saying, guys, that we can't let these things throw us off. I certainly came back out there the next week, even though that, like I said, again, there had been some problems out there. But enough of that. Let's see if we can get some of these interviews up here. I'm going to try to pop these up for you. And I think what I'm going to do is let's take a quick little early break. We also waiting for Lady E to kind of reset and reboot up at the legendary WIGO 1570 pace setter. And we're going to go ahead and get back to her. And we're going to take a little break. We'll be back with more of the Real Talk Sports Show Saturday weekend update in just a moment. Did you know that Allen Vigil Ford in Morrow, Georgia also has Lincoln? Over 35 years of using the Vigil Touch to provide excellent customer service, works hand in hand with the Lincoln Motor Company to provide a luxurious and seamless way to acquire your next luxury vehicle. Lincoln has an array of full-service complimentary owner benefits. These benefits include hospitality partnerships, service pickup and delivery, all which can be accessed through the Lincoln Way app. You can even contact the 24/7 concierge to have someone assist you. Come and see our great inventory of new and pre-owned Lincolns today. Call 678-364-7345 to make an appointment with one of our brand champions or shop 24/7 online at allenvigillincoln.net. We are back here with the Real Talk Sports Show. I'm your host and minister, Jonathan Simmons. We thank God for those of you who have joined us here on the broadcast this morning. Well, as I mentioned to you, I talked about some of the players that are on Jonesboro, and we talked about a young man that we think has a lot of similarities, or I should say that these young men have a lot of similarities to this gentleman that you're about to see right now, the all everything for now, the Colorado Buffaloes. But he started right here in the Atlanta area for Collins Hill, Mr. Travis Hunter. Here's some clips of the stud, number 12, who's now with Dion and the Buffaloes.
When the game on the line, you can't fold and you can't bend. Y'all be playing it safe and I be going for the win. Remember back when they was doubting on the kid. Now they tuned in cause my game too legit. Stayed and remained humble and I made it work. Crazy how I came out so clean from the dirt. We was using cameras on the nights the lights ain't work. We ain't never going back to that and that I learned. Turn your back on me, the worst mistake you ever made. Keep my grass cut, gotta watch out for the snakes. If it's on my plate, best believe it's getting paid. I'm falling like I'm Kobe 33 before the.
Hey. Sorry about that. So that was a little bit of Travis Hunter as he looked in high school right here in Atlanta. He played for Collins Hill. In his senior year, Collins Hill was a team that played for the mythical National High School Football Championship, and they won that, led by the outstanding performance of Travis Hunter. And like I said again, it was probably one of the biggest seismic shifts and kind of a first look at what was going to happen when Coach Prime was unleashed on the unsuspecting college football landscape. And like I said again, the big thing was Travis Hunter, who you just saw, was in fact the number one rated high school recruit in the country. And Dion was able to get him to come to um, was able to get him to come to Jackson State. And that was the beginning of this unbelievable run that to some degree I think has just started with Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, and the entire Sanders family, because Shedeur Sanders has shown that he is an electrifying player and a young man that we're going to hear a lot more of. Speaking of that, that continues to rumble back and forth in the news as coaches, I think, in a state of panic, or continue to ill-advisedly talk some junk, throw shade, whatever you want to call it, towards Dion and his program. And all this is going to do, guys, is irritate. First of all, you're irritating Coach Prime and his folks to some degree. And number two, you're going to actually turn off and turn away many top athletes that could come to your school by you insulting Coach Prime. And at the end of the day, you're not going to win any games. It's so funny. I look at these things and listen to what some of these coaches are saying and doing right now, talking about Dion. And it's just like you're thinking to yourself, hey, man, dude, it's not that serious. It really isn't. I mean, So anyway, that's going to be interesting to see how that goes along. Well, as I mentioned to you guys, I was trying to get you guys some clips of the post-game interviews we had with some of the athletes from Jonesboro last night. And finally, we have the technology working in our behalf. Let's take a quick little timeout break for a second, and then we'll be right back with more of the Real Talk Sports Show. Matter of fact, hey, check out our AI. If you guys haven't seen this before, this is our first AI presenter. Watch this.
Welcome to the Real Talk Sports Show. I'm Aria, the first AI presenter for Real Talk Sports. We want to get your feedback about my participation in the show, so please leave comments. So stay tuned, the Real Talk Sports Show is coming up.
Yeah, we're dabbling in some artificial intelligence, AI. So I'd like to get you guys feedback. Do you think that's pretty cool? What are your thoughts about that? I mean, we're going to be doing some of that more and more and expanding that. And as a matter of fact, before we show you these clips, I'm going to ask you, please, ma'am, please, sir, if you have a young high school or college student, or if you yourself says, man, I always want to get involved with video, TV, audio, radio production, we're your people right here. Hit me up, jsimmons@realtalksports.net, or text me 678-410-9833. We would love to have you be a part of the broadcast. We are looking for camera people. We're looking for audio and video people. We're looking for production people. We're looking for everything, because we are looking to take the show to the next level. And I understand very, very clearly I can't do this alone or with just a small crew that we're working with now. So we want to expand. And listen, here's the thing we can do. We can't pay you a lot of money, but we can let you be a part of our sports coverage. You never know. You might end up covering some NASCAR. You could end up covering or helping me cover the Hawks, helping me cover, listen, our cameraman for high school football. He was such a stand-up guy and really kind of one of our first real peg as far as moving to the next level. He even traveled with me to cover the Super Bowl in Miami and covered it here when it was in Atlanta. Now, how cool is that? I'm just saying that these are the things that the Real Talk Sports Show can have as a possibility. I'm not going to say if you sign on tomorrow, we're going to get you set up for the Super Bowl in Las Vegas next year. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that you'll get some real hands-on experience, and you'll be able to really, so many people I run into talk to me about, hey, man, I want to get involved with, sports talk radio. I want to do a sports blog. Well, this is your opportunity to come on board with a guy that basically started just like what you were trying to do from the ground up. We just started from scratch. We didn't have any broadcast experience. We didn't go to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting or any of those places like that. We didn't go to school for journalism, none of that. Just one day, this very same station, for those of you listening to the legendary WIGO, it was a situation where it's like I was listening to a show, and in fact, there was a sports show on. My good buddy Vincent W. Turner was doing a show, and then over time he called me up. He said, "Hey, man, you ever thought about doing this?" I said, "I don't know." And then he said, "Okay, we can do this together because it let us do our own show." And fast forward a few months later, we started doing the Real Talk Sports Show on the legendary WIGO Pacer of 1570. And we spent 15 years. We stopped the show a couple of times for, either health reasons, or in one case, my mom had passed away. So we took some time off then. But we've been on the air in some way, shape, or form for about 15 years. And we've been able to see some of the most cool things that you ever want. Super Bowl coverages, interviewed Hall of Fame athletes. So again, this is your shot to get started from the ground up. jsimmons@realtalksports.net, or text me 678-410-9833, and we'd love to have you part of it and part of our broadcast. Speaking of part of our broadcast, these young men, after spectacular performances last night for the Jonesboro 53-0 victory, were part of our show. So we'll give you a little snippet of our interviews with number 3, the all-around man for Jonesboro, John Tavius Wyman, and number 5, the big man on campus last night with not 1, not 2, but 3 touchdowns, Mr. Lucius Murray. And let's hear from Mr. Murray first.
All right, guys, the band of Jonesboro is still rocking, but we got a guy who was rocking and shocking today. Number 5, he's going to introduce himself to you right now.
Hey, my name is Lucius Murray, class 2026, running back.
What was the key for you today, man? 3 touchdowns. What was the key for you today?
Just to keep the intensity every game, work hard, do the Monday through Thursday, and come out Friday, have fun, do what I do.
You guys did it.
Yeah, see, you see that young man, he said class, I think, of 26. That means he's like a sophomore. So Jonesboro looks like they're going to have really some really good teams in the next couple of years. As I mentioned, there's another young man who really has kind of taken at least our show by storm. He's been electric. He imitates, I shouldn't say imitates, he gives you a lot of the same flavor of Travis Hunter, who's now in Colorado. And I mean that by he plays both ways, defense and offense. And he even plays special teams. And last night, he had an electric 60, I think it was 63-yard punt return. Number 3, John Tavius Wyman.
All right, guys, a little loud here, but we're on the field. You know this man, we had him on last week, but he's introduced himself to you again right now.
My name is John Tavius Wyman, class 126, ATH.
John Tavius, you're doing it from all areas, defensive back. What was the key to you today? I guess you had a big punt return as well. What was the key?
The key for me was to always stay focused, just keep going, and then keep playing.
Listen,
Yeah, he's like I said, man, this another guy, class of 26. So that means I think they're sophomores. So Jonesboro really could be in the process of building what could be a state championship contending team, not only this year, but certainly in the years to come. So again, big shout out and kudos to what they're doing over at Jonesboro. Our friends over there, head coach, the Timothy Floyd, and the offensive line coach, Coach Serp is what they call him. His real name is Coach Carmichael, but they call him Coach Serp. And he is their social media guru. So check them out. JHS Cardinal. Let me pop it up right here. It's JHS Cardinal FB. So that's their moniker. I'll pop it up right there, and you can find them also at JHS Cardinal Football on Instagram. And again, if you want to see highlights of them, not only them, but also we do any team that plays at Terra Stadium, we put them, we cover those games, and we make sure to interview at least the coach or the athlete after the game is over. And that is provided by our title sponsor, Allen Vigil Ford and Lincoln. They do that. They are also my employer. And we're very grateful to Mr. Vigil for his support, not only just for high school football, but he is a big contributor for the community at large, especially in Clayton and in Henry County, where our dealership services most of our clients. So, yeah, check us out right there as well. Well, I talked a little bit about college football. Before I do any more of that, we also want to give you an update from what's happening in women's sports. And of course, for us, our big tie is to the WNBA because literally right down the road from where I reside, the Atlanta Dream plays their home games at a beautiful stadium located right actually near the airport. So they are now in the playoffs. They are facing the Dallas Wings. Unfortunately, it has been not necessarily a great start for them. They did lose the opening round game 92-84 to the Wings. So they now trail Dallas 1-0. But I think look for them to continue to grow and build. You have a situation where, it's been a while since they've been in the playoffs. So it's exciting to see them at least back in the hunt. And they're going to have 2 games here in Atlanta coming up very, very soon. And as a matter of fact, speaking of that, the Dreams have tickets available for you and I right now. So you can go on and check them out. Tickets are available for their game against the Dallas Wings. Let's go here and take a look and see if we can peek at kind of the game stats. I'm going to go back here in just a second and look at that for you from that first game of the playoffs. Like I say again, the final score was 92-84, and we're just having a little problem pulling it up now. So we'll get back to that in just a moment. Let's see if I can kind of scramble and get that. And it's not being cooperative. That's okay. Bottom line is they went down 92-84 to the Dallas Wings, but look for them to do some damage when they get back home in Atlanta, where they play extremely well. All right, speaking of playing well, the Atlanta Braves, for the 6th time, I believe it is in a row, have won the NL Eastern Division and now find themselves poised to make another run to a World Series championship. Bravos are like the hammer. They have been almost unstoppable all year long, especially offensively, where they have the potential to have not one, not two, but four players hit over 40, excuse me, over 30 home runs during the season. And they are led by a guy who is, I don't say consensus because there is some pushback. Some people are talking about, hey, he's not going to be the MVP, but Ronald Acuna putting up stunning numbers. Matter of fact, historical numbers as an outfielder for this team. He's actually a right fielder. His numbers just off the chain. What this man is doing, what he's accomplishing on the field for the Bravos is incredible. He has become the very first man to ever hit 30 homers and steal 60 bases. That's right, guys. 30 homers and 60 bases for Ronald Acuna this year. So him doing some big things. And also we want to give a big shout out to the big bopper from Oakland. We're talking about Matt Olson, a guy that is making everybody forget Freddie Freeman. They run around Freddie who? As Olson has put up monster numbers and has, in fact, set a new record for Braves players with home runs. He has 51 home runs for the season. That's right, Matt Olson. Let's take a look at his stats so far this year, and they are monstrous. Again, no disrespect to Freddie. You can't take away anything what that guy did in his legendary career here in Atlanta. He is most likely going to be a future Hall of Famer. But there was a lot of angst, a lot of pushback, a lot of thought. Even from me, I was like, hey, man, why would you let go of this guy? Well, here's what you got. In his second year here in Atlanta, and oh, by the way, Matt Olson is a Metro Atlanta native. His second year back, he is fulfilling the dream of every kid that grows up watching his hometown baseball team. Listen to these stats, guys. 51 home runs. He's tied the Braves record held previously by Andrew Jones. 128 runs batted in and 116 runs scored. And batting, not too shabby, 279. Matt Olson making hay in that cleanup spot. But here's the guy that everybody knows is our future MVP, putting up some just staggering numbers and in the position, guys, in the position to make these numbers look even more incredulous. Ronald Acuna, 201 hits. So 200 guys, is that big marker plate for, batters. So he's got over 200 hits, number one. Number two, he has 37 home runs. Number two, he has now stolen 70 bases. What? Yeah, 70 bases. Excuse me, I'm sorry, 66 stolen bases. My bad, 66 stolen bases. So you have a situation with Ronald Acuna that he could be the first guy to now get 40-70. And that means 40 home runs and 70 runs batted in. But wait, there's more. In addition to having 200 hits, 37 home runs, 66 steals, he also has 98 RBIs, and he also is batting 337. So listen to this, guys. This guy might have a season, okay, where he has 40 home runs, 70 steals, knocks in over 100 runs, and bats over 330. We may not see that again. I know it seems like, well, people have hit 50 homers or people have done this and done that, but you're talking about being in the 40-40, 100, 330 club. I think he'd be by himself in that club, boys. I'm just saying. But now, wait, there's more. Austin Riley, a guy who a couple years ago was an MVP candidate himself. 35 home runs, 89 runs batted in, 105 runs scored, and him batting right in those high 270s, 278. Marcell Ozuna, a guy that many people thought was dead in the water due to his unfortunate, off the field situations going on with his wife. And he started off the year, I think, batting like 080. But a guy we'll talk about a little bit later, the manager, Mr. Snickler, said, hey, leave him alone. And it's paid off dividends as he has roared back 34 homers, 81 runs batted in, and he himself has scored 76 runs. Ozzie Albies, 29 homers, 95 runs batted in, and he himself also has scored 82 runs. So let's take a look at this lineup that we're looking at here that teams will have to face in postseason play. The Braves have done exactly what we thought they would do. They have already 4 players who have hit 30 homers or more. And they got a shot to have 5 players hit 30 more homers or more. And I don't think it's ever been done in Major League Baseball history. And if you look at that lineup, everybody talks about the Yankees and Murderers Row with, Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth and Tony Azzeri. But I mean, this Braves lineup is pretty darn close. If you look down that first 5, 51 homers, 37 homers, 35 homers, 34 homers, 29 homers. You got 3 guys that are you got 2 guys knocking on the door of 100 runs batted in. You only got 1 guy's knocking on the door of 135 runs batted in. I mean, this is a prodigious Braves offensive machine that we're looking at right here. So I'm telling you guys, they have a shot here to do something really epic. The big question is going to be for this team is, are they going to have the ability to pitch well in big games? That's going to be the key to this team, because we can clearly see that this team can hit. Now, I know people talk about the fact that, hey, you know what? You know, good pitching stops good hitting. We understand that. But at the end of the day, this Braves team, the key is going to be, is are they going to be able to be a team that can pitch well in the clutch? That's going to be the key with this team. Are they going to be able to get those big saves when they absolutely have to have them? Are they going to get those good pitching performances when they absolutely have to have them? But right now, here's the crazy thing. All those stats I mentioned about offense, Braves are amongst the top in pitching in terms of ERA, in terms of strikeouts. So this is why I mean this team is really a potent team and a team that can really do some damage. But again, it's going to be, the key is going to be, can they get the pitching? Speaking of pitching, let's take a look. Spencer Strider quietly is putting together a Cy Young Award type season. Now, he's had a couple of lumpy outings recently, but this guy's stats, well, let's take a look. 17-5. Probably no shot to win 20 games, but 17-5, 3.73 earned run average, and he struck out 259 batters in only 169 innings. Well, for those of you not familiar, that if you get to the point where your strikeouts or a strikeout an inning, you are doing a masterful job in keeping the opposition at bay. But wait, there's more. Charlie Morton, a guy who's been a little up and down, a veteran. Same thing. 14-11, 177 strikeouts in just 157 and 2/3 innings. And last but not least, Bryce Elder, 12 wins, 4 losses, 3.50 earned run average. And also another guy striking out 126 in just 167 innings. So these 3 guys are going to be really the key to how far Atlanta goes in this postseason. If those 3 guys can, in fact, perform at this same level at least, the Braves are going to be a tough out. And, of course, the bullpen, well, let's take a look here at the man. Rafael Iglesias, 29 saves and 33 opportunities, 3.26 earned run average, 5.4 record overall. And he has, let's see here, looks like has he got a strikeout inning? Let's check. We drew a blank there. That's okay. Bottom line is, he is the guy they're going to count on out of the pen, along with AJ Minter, who also has 10 saves and 13 appearances. So those are the big 5 guys: Strider, Morton, Elder, Iglesias, and Minter. If those 5 guys are on point, the Bravos could be hosting up another World Series title. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. We're doing a little bit of extended broadcast because we want to talk about the Falcons and a little bit about college football. So we're going to take a little break right now, but you need to keep it locked for more of the Real Talk Sports Show, and we'll be back in just a moment. I'm going to tell you, don't go nowhere. Just stay right locked, right here.
Are you in the market for a new vehicle? Well, check out Allen Vigil Ford Lincoln in Morrow, Georgia. We have one of the largest inventories in our area for both new and pre-owned vehicles, so we're sure to have something for everyone. Family owned and operated since 1982, customer satisfaction is our #1 priority. Come see our full lineup of vehicles and find the one that best fits you. Give us a call today, 678-726-5739, or shop us 24/7 online at allenvigilford.net.
All right, we're back here. Again, you're watching the Real Talk Sports Show. I'm your host, Minister Jonathan Simmons. And we want to encourage you before I go any further to please follow us on social media at Real Talk Sports, the number 7. You can find us on all social media platforms, Real Talk Sports, the number 7. And please, when you go to our YouTube page, which is Real Talk Sports, I want you to, you know what to do. Subscribe, 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 and hit that little bell so it will tell you when we are having a broadcast because we go live, obviously, for high school football. And we also do live pregame and often postgame from the professional teams that we have here, like the Hawks and the Falcons. So keep it locked right here for that. Well, a little college football, a lot of games going on this weekend that will be must-see TV. Biggest one, of course, is where all the eyes, it used to be the eyes of Texas are upon us. Well, right now, it's the eyes of the nation are on Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes. And today, the Buffaloes take on their in-state rival, Colorado State. Colorado State will be facing off against Prime Time and his crew up there in Boulder. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see if, again, this team can continue to do what they did last week against Nebraska. That is to say, okay, even though we might be considered the so-called favorite, at the end of the day, we're going to go ahead and drop the hammer, hopefully like they did against Nebraska, and continue to be dominant. And the key is what it's been these last 2 games. Shedeur Sanders, the trigger man, the quarterback, son of Deion, can he continue to play at the level that he is playing at right now, which for these first 2 games has been epic? 900 plus yards in just 2 games. That's what it's about. Can Shedeur Sanders continue to find the playmakers to make the big plays? So that's going to be the question. So let me go here to a little controversy has popped up here. Colorado State's head coach, which I can't understand why this guy would be talking. His team is not that good. Jay Norvell. This is what he says. He took a shot at Deion Sanders, a little, little jab. He said, "Hey, when I talk to grown-ups, I take my hat off and my glasses off." And I don't get it. Let me just read the whole comments. Let's see if I can read this here. Okay. Now I'll put a stop this here. This is what it says here. And this is article from Sports Illustrated. It said that Sunday's matchup between number 18 Colorado and Colorado State already was going to draw plenty of attention, which we knew that. But it says here, CSU coach Jay Norvell is adding some sizzle to the interstate rivalry by taking a swipe at Coach Prom's public persona. On his weekly radio show, Norvell shared some remarks he made during an interview with ESPN, which he highlighted the difference between him and Sanders. He said, "I sat down with ESPN today," he said Wednesday night, "and I don't care if they hear it in Boulder. I told them I took off my hat and took my glasses off. I said when I talk to grown-ups, I take my hat off, my glasses off. That's what my mother taught me." And he said those who follow Sanders obviously are kind of feeling some kind of way here. Norvell also added that his Rams players have developed a chip on their shoulder after being asked so many questions about Colorado by ESPN, which is televising Saturday night's game. Okay. But here's the thing. At the end of the day, this is the kind of thing that to me, a coach who is overcome by the moment does. See, any coach will tell you, any person will tell you, any athlete, any competitor will tell you what you don't want to do is stoke the fires of your competition coming up. Now, some people look at it the opposite. They're like, "Hey, man, I don't care. We're going to tell them we want all that smoke. And, I want them to get hyped about playing us." Well, that sounds good in theory, but most teams that win don't really, especially consistent winners, they don't say anything. They don't come out. They let their work speak for themselves, and they go about their business. Yeah, you have some teams that come out like Coach Prime, obviously with Colorado. They said what they were going to do, but they never took a shot at any team. They actually took their shots at themselves internally. We talked about, "I'm going to bring my luggage." When, a lot of guys not going to be here. He wasn't talking about any other team. He was talking about his own team. He was like, "Look, there's a certain standard that we're going to lay down here, and that if it's not met, y'all won't be here. You'll find out it's going to be a lot like the NFL, which stands for not for long." And again, it wasn't a situation where he was doing anything, I think, to be braggadocious. He was just saying, hey, man, I have a track record. See, it's one thing when you're bragging and you haven't done nothing. Like Colorado State is a bad team. They haven't been that good for a minute. But Coach Prime, he can say, like he said before, I'm not boasting. I'm just telling you facts. I have won at every level. He's won at the high school level, he's won at the college level, and he's won at the pros. 2 Super Bowl wins, and recently picked as one of the NFL's top 100 players in the history of the NFL, which has been around for close to 100 years. Legendary. He is the guy that really has been the poster boy for what they call shutdown corner. People just didn't throw the Deion side. So when Deion's talking, he's not talking out of just bravado. He's talking about experience and performance on field. Now, why Coach Norvell would decide to be a good idea, because it seems not to have worked for people so far, to try to take a shot at Deion about his glasses, talking about what that's what his mother taught him. Hey, man, at the end of the day, what does it have to do with anything? You know, some things you need to keep to yourself and talk about it afterwards. If you win, then you can say, well, look here, man, I wasn't feeling the guy. I didn't like the way he handled his business. But to me, if you look, and I'm an OG, so I get it. I get sometimes, and especially as we've looked at sports, how the evolution of sports over the years, a lot of guys are feeling some kind of way. And I will say that some of this has to do with, and please, when I say this, don't take this out of context. Some of it has to do with the racial perspective, okay, of how many Caucasian people perceive black men, especially black men who are bold, black men who are bodacious, and black men who appear to be boastful. This is like a major poke in the eye for many people who are white. And again, it's people. It's not just a straight racism thing. It also has to do with a societal thing and the way certain people, as he said, are brought up and how people look at things. It's perspective. It's beyond. It's not just race. It's a perspective thing. And so many people are thrown off, and many people are taken aback when men of color, especially, have we those who are around swag or appear to be overconfident. They appear to be more verbal than what people would like to talk about. So that's what you're seeing here in this thing with the Coach Norvell. And listen, I talk to guys, I know old school guys, many of them Caucasian guys, and we've had honest conversations. The guys say, man, I don't like all this, bragging and dancing and swag and all this kind of stuff. I don't like it. I said, okay, I get what you're saying. That from your perspective, is how you grew up, and I understand that especially if you go back even to the '60s. That's why so many guys revere Jim Brown, because Jim Brown was old school. And he talked about, hey man, when you get to the end zone, act like you've been there already. When you score, act like you've been there already. That was a theme for so many athletes that grew up in, I want to say, even from the 40s, 50s, and 60s. I know some of you guys listening to this who are millennials or post-millennials just saying, dude, you talking like ancient history. But well, you have to have a historical perspective in order to understand why people do what they do. But at the end of the day, you have to understand and you have to grow. You have to know that, hey, man, things are not the way they used to be. And here's the thing, some of the things that were said, they kind of were fake and hypocritical anyway. They didn't make any sense. I mean, even from a biblical perspective, the Bible tells you that there's nothing harm with celebrating, especially celebrating God. And that's the other thing that people take all these shots at Dion. Almost all of his statements that have to do with his success, he ties it back to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. He ties it back to mighty Jehovah God. So at the end of the day, how can you say on one hand, you all about, uh, faith, family, and football, and then a guy is talking from his faith and you going sideways? Now, I know you might say, well, hey, you want to talk about his faith, you talk about his glasses. It's, it's the same thing when you're basically taking shots at somebody by the way they go about their business. That ain't Christian-like, is it? I'm just saying. Yeah, I know it's too deep for y'all. Anyway, Colorado State, I think he's going to get a beat down, unfortunately, because they have now stirred up the hornet's nest. They shouldn't have done that. And I think they're going to have a situation where they're going to find that they would have better have left things unsaid. As the folks from Nebraska who came out and stomped on the logo found out. And again, they played them pretty tough at the beginning, but they found out eventually that they shouldn't have done that and end up taking a nasty loss. All right, really quickly here, before we go to the break, let's take a look at some of the scores. Excuse me, some of the upcoming games that we will expect today that people will have their eyes on here around the country. Okay, one of them, LSU ranked number 14 in the country. Can they recover after their continue to recover after their shocking beatdown against Florida State? They're playing Mississippi State today. All the time when you play SEC opponent, you never know what you might get. So that one's going to be pretty interesting. UNC, North Carolina, hosting Big Ten opponent Minnesota, a team that traditionally has had a pretty decent defensive team. That should be a good one. Of course, right here in Georgia, the number one team in the country, a team looking for a three-peat, the Georgia Bulldogs, who've been kind of pushed off the college football map a little bit because of all the fanfare around Colorado. They host South Carolina. Don't sleep on this game. It's going to be a little bit of a test for the Bulldogs. I know South Carolina's not that good. But again, these rivalry games, because South Carolina's the next state over, you never know. So that's going to be one that's very interesting. Duke, can they continue to roll on as the ACC continues to have these ACC Big Ten matchups? They're hosting Northwestern. They're coming off a big win over Clemson. Washington, ranked number 8. They'll be fleeing the Pac-12. They're holding against Michigan State, another team you cannot sleep on. And last but not least, staying right back here at home, Georgia Tech, the Yellow Jackets, find themselves heading on the road to the University of Mississippi to see if they can hang tight with the 17th ranked Rebels, who, Coach Lane Kiffin, he does it. And one more. I'm going to give a big shout out to my title sponsor and my boss, Mr. Alan Vigil. Florida hosting number 11 Tennessee. Florida unranked and not looking too good to start this season. But like I said, again, these SEC matchups, you never know. All right, guys, keep it locked right here. We're going to come back and talk about the Atlanta Falcons, who are 1-0, undefeated so far this season. All right, guys, we'll be back with more of the Real Talk Sports Show in just a moment. Hey, sports fans, tune in for live high school football Fridays, 7:30 p.m. on RealTalkSports.net. Check out your favorite Metro Atlanta teams as they do battle on the gridiron. It's your high school game of the week, live streaming free Friday nights on RealTalkSports.net. For more sports coverage and great sports talk, catch the Real Talk Sports Show Tuesdays, 8 p.m. on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or Twitch. Brought to you by Allen Vigil Ford in Morrow, a business giving back to their community. Give them a call at 678-364-3979 or check them out online at AllenVigilFord.net.
Coming up next, it's the Real Talk Sports Show, bringing you great sports talk with perspective. Now, here's our host, Jonathan Simmons.
Hey, we're back, guys, for the final portion of the Real Talk Sports Show Saturday weekend dates. Again, I'm your host, Minister Jonathan Simmons. We thank you so much for locking in to us today. Remember, follow us anywhere on social media at Real Talk Sports, the number 7. But you can follow me personally at Minister J Sim. Love to have you join in with us here. Always appreciate your comments and your input on the show. And one last thing. Hey, we got room for sponsors and advertisers on our show. We could be running your ad right here on this show, and you would be shocked at how reasonable our pricing is to do that. Remember, hit me up at jsimmons@realtalksports.net or simply call or text me at 678-410-9833. So yeah, guys, last week we got a chance to see our Atlanta Falcons. And, people, and me included, was feeling some kind of way, looked a little flat, not fluffy at the beginning. I will tell you, it was kind of slow motion, especially offensively. The team seemed to be very lethargic. And what I mean by that is that they look like they should have played the starters more in the preseason. And anybody, I know Coach Art has said no, and and all the other teams around the NFL have refused to do so. in many cases, and I get that, but I still think that the teams, based on what I saw in the first half especially, they really should have, you know, played some in the preseason because the team looked disjointed, man. They look out of sync for a good portion of that first half of play, especially. But I just want to say this, okay? For everybody was flipping out, even I'll admit I was feeling some kind of way. And I talked some junk about, hey, if he doesn't play right, he can be replaced. And it's true. This is what I'm going to tell everybody. I'm a big Desmond Ritter fan, and I'll chronicle why I'm a big Desmond Ritter fan in just a moment. But I will tell you also, you have to read between the lines and listen when these coaches are talking. And if you remember when they first got and signed Tyler Heineke, the thing that Coach Art said was, "We can win with him." And remember, the Falcons have seen Heineke's play up close and personal two ways. Number one, a lot of people don't know he played right here at Collins Hill, the same high school that Travis Hunter played for from Colorado, balled out here. And number two, he led the Washington Commodores to a come from behind victory against the Falcons. I think it was last year. Falcons had them down dead in the water. I think 10 or 12 points in the fourth quarter, and he came roaring back. So what I'm saying to everybody is don't fret about the quarterback situation. As much as I believe Desmond Ritter is the guy, if he ain't, Tyler Heineke is going to step in. And I can tell you about this guy. If you look at him, he's got that confidence that he can do the job. And with these kind of weapons that the Falcons have provided, any decent quarterback should be able to be a winning field general. Now, let's say this. Let's take a look at Ritter last week. Almost everybody, myself included, focused on the fact that he only threw for 115 yards. And you can't win the NFL consistently when your quarterback throws for 115 yards. It's just not going to work. I'm just being real candid. It's just not going to happen. Can't have a guy throwing for just 115 yards and expect you to win consistently. However, the stat that sticks out to me the most is the reason why I thought this guy was a good choice. Sacked 4 times, was under pressure for most of the game. But he didn't do something, which is very, very critical, especially the way the Falcons defense balled out. You can't turn the ball over. Ball safety is key. And even though he only threw for 118 yards, he was 15 of 18 because he threw mostly checkdowns, except for that one brilliant pass they threw to, I shouldn't say brilliant, but that one pass he got out to Kyle Pitts. He threw no interceptions. And like I said again, as much as you want the guy for throw the more yards, if you take a look at the way the Falcons are configured, they really have made this team a lot like the team they made for Matt Ryan when he first came to the Falcons in 2008. What they understood, we got a young quarterback here. He's in a cauldron of pressure because he's replacing a Falcons legend and a fan favorite in Michael Vick. And many people felt that Michael Vick was going to somehow come back. There's real talk now. And they wanted the big lineman, as I did. I think with Glenn Dorsey out of LSU. Everybody, because the guy was a stud. Everybody was saying he was a top 3 pick. Falcons needed defensive help, especially on the line. And so everybody was feeling some kind of way where they did not pick him up and then got Matt Ryan instead of the number 3 pick overall. What the Falcons understood is that they said we need to have a way we can run this ball because Matt was a bit of a gunslinger in college. They said we need the protection for the young guy. So what they did is they set up a team that they had some guys that could block pretty good on the offensive line, but more importantly, they got a running back in free agency by the name of Turner. And what he was able to do was he was to give the Falcons a dominant running team. You know, if you remember when Turner was running for the Falcons, that guy was just a beast to try tackling. He had a couple of years, I think, where he's over 1,200 yards on the ground. What does that mean? Now you don't have to rely on the quarterback to sling the ball around for 30 or 40 times a game in his first season. Because later Matt turned out to be that dude. And that's the same thing they've done here with this Falcons team. They've configured them together a running attack that is one of the best in the league. Now the Falcons were good. I mean, they had a good, running attack when they had Michael Turner, but this Falcons running attack is unparalleled. We've never had anything like this. The closest thing we've had to it, we've had it twice, I should say. We had it twice. With a guy that we'll bring on, good Lord willing, next week, if he's feeling up to it, when we start to do our Falcons flashback, which is William Andrews. Remember, they had William Andrews and I think Lynn Kane. Those two were like thunder and lightning. And to some degree, the only thing we had kind of close to that is in the Super Bowl year. If you remember, they had uh, Devontae Freeman, and they also had I can't think of the other guy right now. I'm drawing a blank. Kevin Coleman. So at the end of the day, when you had that type of running punch, Matt Ryan had an MVP season. When they had Coleman and Freeman, it meant that you couldn't just load up and say we're going to double team, triple team Julio Jones and hope for the best. No, you had this potent offense that consisted of not just Matt to Julio, but also you now have a running attack where you have Freeman not only running the ball, but coming out of the backfield, and Kevin Coleman, the same thing. And this is what I think the Falcons have now with Bijan Robinson and with Tyler Algier. And oh, by the way, some guy named number 84, probably the Falcons MVP last year, Cordarrelle Patterson. And oh, by the way, you have Kyle Pitts. And oh, by the way, you have Drake London. So the Falcons have put together a team around this young man where he doesn't have to be a game winner in and of himself. All he has to do is play within the system. Now, a lot of people hate this because you say, well, that's why we lost the Super Bowl. Because Matt Ryan was a system guy. Well, that's how you got to the Super Bowl. I mean, people, I try to tell people, look here, man, at the end of the day, they got to the Super Bowl because Matt Ryan basically followed the script. Now, I know you say a Hall of Fame quarterback should have caught an audible. I'm not going back there. I'm just telling you that at the end of the day, you live and die by what brought you there. And so Matt was a guy that, I mean, he audible sometimes, but he didn't do much of that. And he decided that was the best way to go. And like I said, they got to the Super Bowl. I mean, I'm just keeping this thing real, man. So like I said, they have crafted this team to be a lot like the team they had with Matt Ryan. Because I'm going to give you some of Matt Ryan's stats in his first year, 2008, which, oh, by the way, they went to the playoffs. And then we're going to wrap this show up and get out of here. In 2008, Matt Ryan's first game, these were his stats. He had 156 yards passing against the Detroit Lions. Okay, 156 yard passing. But the Falcons rushed for a staggering 318 yards. Okay. Next game, Matt Ryan passed for 129 yards. The next game, Matt Ryan passed for 192. Now we're starting to see him come into his own. Next game, he passed for 268, then 370. I'm sorry, Lord have mercy. Forgive me, y'all. Forgive me. My bad. Passed for 192, 150, 194. He didn't get his first 300-yard passing game until Game 6 against the Chicago Bears. But let's lead the running attacks. Their stats, 318 in his first game, 318 yards on the ground, 105 on the ground, 186, 118, and 176. It wasn't until the running game was totally shut down by the Bears and held to 75 yards that Matt Ryan, now in his sixth game, much more comfortable and confident, threw for his first 300-yard game. So what am I saying? Preacher, what are you saying? I'm saying that, remember, and me, myself, we all talked about Matt, especially in his latter years, didn't have a big arm, couldn't throw the ball consistently downfield. But at the end of the day, the guy won games. And my only ought against the guy, so people say, oh, Pat, Reverend, you were Matt Ryan trying to get him out of here. No, what I always said was, and it's the same thing true for Ritter. Ritter is going to have to find a way to be a more effective runner. And I told Matt Ryan the same thing to his face. NFL requires that a quarterback, if they're not mobile, they have to be extremely deft in that pocket. Which Matt wasn't bad, but he took a lot of bad sacks because he just, missed opportunities to at least get back to the line of scrimmage, or better yet, pick up a couple of yards needed for a first down. And Desmond Ridder's going to have to do the same thing. He's going to have to understand that there are times you can't take a sack. You just can't. You just can't. It could cost you a field goal, cost you a Super Bowl. You have to tuck it, and take off. I'm not asking you to be Michael Vick. I'm not asking you to be Lamar Jackson. What I'm asking you to do is to scramble. The thing about it, Tom Brady, one of the backbreaking things he did in that Super Bowl win was he had a couple of just killer drive extending runs on third down where the Falcons could have won the game. He did that twice, especially in that last drive they had. I don't need you to like you said, to be, um, a 4-6 sprinter. I just need for you to understand there are times where I got to say, pump fake, run, slide, first down. Now, all that being said, they're going to have their hands full against the Packers. Jordan Love is that guy. He knows how to do that. Good runner, big arm. So what do they have to do? The defense is once again going to have to do what they did last week, but better. They're going to have to be a team that bends but doesn't break. But more importantly, they're going to have to find ways to get turnovers. And they're going to need another performance from somebody like Jesse Bates, who was him last week. 11 total tackles and 2 picks. And both those picks led to Falcon scores. So that's my prognosis, guys. The Falcons got a shot to win this game. The line is about 1. I think it's going to be a tight game all the way to the end. The key thing is this. If they can run the ball and contain Jordan Love, the Falcons will be 2-0 after the end of this game. I'm just keeping it real. 2-0 if they do 2 things. 1, run the ball well and find a way to stop Jordan Love from hurting them with his legs and extending drives. But the Falcons have been terrible the last couple of years since Art Smith has been here, and really before that, of stopping quarterbacks from hurting them with their legs. If they can do that, and they can get just a little bit more from Ritter this week, your Atlanta Falcons will be 2-0. And how about that? All right, guys, we got to wrap this thing up. We actually ran a little bit overtime. Sorry about that. For those of you who are listening on WIGO, that's okay. We'll do better next time. Remember, you can follow us anywhere on social media at Real Talk Sports, the number 7. You also, if you want to be a part of this show, you got some good sports news, a coach or a player you think we should spotlight, hey, we would love to have them on. Love to have them on. Jay Simmons at realtalksports.net, or text me or call me 678-410-9833. Last but not least, for those of you who may or may not know, people call me the minister for a reason. I actually am a real live minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ. So before I leave every broadcast, I always ask the same question. Do you know the Lord Jesus Christ, your personal Savior? If you don't, I want to tell you, please, ma'am, please, sir, get to know him today. Why? Nobody loves you like Jesus. He came here, lived a sinless life, and then died for your sins, but more importantly, rose from the dead. And when that happened, now 2 wonderful things can happen to you. If you repent of your sins and believe that, 2 great things happen. Number 1, you become a citizen of the kingdom of heaven. And number 2, you become an adoptive child of God with all the rights therein. That means you now can go to God like a heavenly parent, asking for anything. I mean, anything that you need or desire. And of course, according to his will, he'll grant it to you, because God's not going to give you anything bad. So if you tell me, hey, man, I'll ask the Lord for some weed, ask the Lord to give me some liquor, give me some girls so I can do what I got to do, you're not getting those. If you ask for something good, like a wife, a loving wife, if you ask him for, health, anything according to his will, he's going to give that to you. And number 2, when you leave here, because we all got to do that, you go to a happy place called heaven, where there's none of the following: no pain, no pandemic, no bad people anywhere. It's spectacular. Every building adorned with the most spectacular jewels we've ever seen. As a matter of fact, the streets are paved with a gold so pure it is translucent. And good news, you now get to be in the presence of God forever. You can see him face to face, see Jesus Christ. All the people of love face to face. Now, how cool will that be? All those people you read about, ta-da, there they are. And you'll be hanging out with them forever. And you avoid that nasty place called hell, where all the things I just mentioned that are in heaven won't be in hell. It's bad people everywhere, terrible, painful, fiery, horrific. And most of all, you cut off from God and all the people of love forever and a day. I don't know about you, but I like option number 1 instead of option number 2. All right, everybody, until the next time we get back together again. You know how I do it. God bless you and have a wonderful rest of the day, or evening, whichever may apply. So long.